The Hangout on Air is now live. Greetings, viewers. This week is the topic of social media, which has become a very big part of pop culture, and is indeed how pop culture spreads so quickly, like wildfire, in some cases. Let's start this off, as we seem to be starting off every week, and it's a good place to start, your earliest memories and interaction with social media.
Okay, I'll start with mine, because I'm the only one here. My first interaction with social media would have been MySpace. That's what it's called. Yeah, MySpace. This would have been, and I don't really think, it would have been 12 years ago, so that would have made it 2002. And the reason that I had any kind of dealings with it at all was I was in a band. And obviously back in the day,
I did
MySpace was the only place,
in 2002.
Well, there you go. It may have been 2003, but I distinctly remember the first house I lived in Brisbane, we had access to MySpace. That was how we met musicians, communicated with them. Everything that Facebook does now, we did on MySpace. Yeah, 2002, Naomi just had a look. So yeah, it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. People were paying exorbitant amounts of money to have professional photos done for their profile pictures. I remember going to seminars at the local, the library in the centre of where I was living, on marketing seminars on how to write a MySpace profile that'll get you famous. And I can't remember who it was now, but there was it wasn't Lily Allen, was it? There was a a MySpace star. Although it turns out later, Lily Allen's father was like a record executive. But it was the age of the internet star. It only just become a thing to put your songs online, and people all over the world can find them. So it was exciting. It was huge for us. But I've been a big social network supporter and user from day dot, from as soon as I had access to the internet. MSN Messenger, MySpace, the whole lot, but definitely MySpace was the first time that I fully got used to a platform and used it for something other than just, oh look, there's a picture of I don't know because it's taking 5 minutes to load, I don't know what the picture is. But yeah, MySpace, definitely my biggest one, and that black profile and, HTML colors in the text and using all that old coding that we learned in high school back in the 90s.
Yeah, and all those, because you could customize the hell out of your MySpace page.
Yeah, and you could pay money and get fancy ones done.
Yeah. I kind of like how Facebook doesn't let you do that. That way everyone's is uniform in accordance with the Facebook way of doing things. But my social media interaction probably predates even the concept, or the modern concept, of social media. And that was, I've been using the internet since I was 19 years old. Interacting with people then was basically email, IRC, Internet Relay Chat, and ICQ.
ICQ, I could remember the other one, ICQ, yeah.
Yeah, ICQ was the big thing back then. And it was instant messages back and forth to people you may or may not have known.
Yep.
Excuse me. And then as the years went on, like I said, in 2002 I was studying music up in a town called Grafton. And there was a big IRC crash at some point, and I went back, and everyone, when I came back, IRC and ICQ, that all really died down. Then in 2004, I did a computer course, and all the people there were more on MSN, so that way I sort of slowly went more towards MSN. Then Winamp, even though it's not really part of social media, I had the very first version of Winamp. That's how long I've been using the internet.
Yeah. I remember the first Winamp.
Back when MP3s were a new thing, you could compress a file down to this small, and it only Like, let me say that again. You press a file down to as little as 3 megabytes, and it only took 25 minutes to download. Then along comes YouTube, a video sharing website, which was just genius, really, because before other people, because at the time I knew a martial artist, I still think she's on my friends list on Facebook, and it was Wushu. And there was pre-YouTube, there was nowhere to share it or anything like that. Then someone said, wouldn't it be great if there's a website where you can share videos, and that's YouTube. Thankfully, by that time, I had ADSL. Yeah. That was only, I think I only had, good morning, Dave.
Oh, he fell into a black hole. Oh, there he is.
Your audio, we cannot hear you, Dave. We can't hear you. Right. Okay, one moment.
One
word. Sounds like. Okay, I'll just keep talking. Then I've basically been at the beginning of all of the social medias, except for Facebook. When I didn't really know, I'd heard of it, but Facebook just picked up in popularity so unbelievably quickly. I was like, no, MySpace is where it's at. But then I found out these legal things in 2008. Anything at the time that you put on Facebook was legally owned by Facebook, and that's in the terms and agreements. So I sort of avoided having a Facebook, but then I found out they changed that later, so in 2009 is when I started using it more regularly. Excuse me, still got this cough. And that brings us up, but now there's things like Twitter, like when you share on YouTube. Dave's just fixing his mixed viewers. When you share on YouTube, there's so many options you can share on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, Blogger, and a whole bunch of ones I've never heard of. It's like this social media craze is just gone ballistic. Everyone wants their own social media website now.
Definitely, we're definitely in the age of the consumer as the producer. So it's everybody wants a platform to put up what they've created, and but it goes back to what I was saying before, my early interactions with MySpace, and that's what we used it for. We were there to put our music up and show people what we'd created. So I think, as anything, it's the multiplier effect. As soon as somebody comes up with a great idea that is exactly what people want or need, if they don't realize they need it, but they do, yeah, you're going to get every Tom, Dick, and Frederick running along going, oh, okay, so we've got MySpace for music or YouTube videos. Okay, so we need something for pictures. Okay, but what about people who want to have a digital scrapbook? Okay, there's Flickr, and what if we need to appease the housewife market and so on. I think
social media just for the housewife.
Yeah, well, it's become that. It's Tumblr or something, and there's every kind of collector or content producer you could possibly imagine has a specialized social media network. But I don't think it's unusual. It's exactly where it came from. Social media came from people wanting to share their creations.
How about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, good morning. Sorry for the delay. It would appear that 3 7:30 on a Sunday morning is more or less my limit. I was freelancing beyond midnight on a Saturday night as usual, and it's just a bit of a. Also, slept terribly last night. I kept waking up, and I was up for like half an hour at one point. Anyway, hello.
Hello. We're just talking about Matty's been through it, I've been through mine, our earliest memories with social media.
And what do we count? We're counting the current social media websites as that. We're not going back as far as ICQ and the like.
Wait, we've gone back that far?
We're going back as far as you can possibly go.
Well...
Back then, it wasn't considered social media. It's become a thing.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's the question. What do we accept under the pantheon of social media? Anything that's social or not? If we're going for just any means of communication that happens on a website, I used to when I first joined the internet in like 1997. I went straight to like web-based chat rooms. I used to talk to kids my age, and which was about 15 at the time, and as far as I know, no creepers. But thinking about it, there may have been plenty. I might have been the only 15-year-old in the room.
Like back then, it was like almost impossible to tell. These days, it's getting easier and easier to tell, especially with things like Google image search, where you can just drag and drop. Is this person's profile really who they say they are? Drag and drop, and it's some famous model no one's heard of.
Yeah, that's true.
Dialects and different languages play a part as well, which I think will develop more in a forum. But as far as identifying what is classed as social media, I think what Ian and I were talking there, where you were getting your mic sorted out, is the media part. So in a forum, it's a discussion. So it's social, but it's not necessarily media. So it's things like MySpace was for sharing music, and every time I say MySpace, it just doesn't feel right. It's like I don't know. It's like saying the lost city of Atlantis didn't really exist. Yeah, but so sharing the content that we produce, I guess, is the defining factor.
Mm-hmm. Are we all old enough to remember, or have been using the internet long enough to remember, web rings?
There's a word I haven't heard for a long time.
Because I was big into Sailor Moon back then, so I'd be all like on the anime web rings and the whatever web rings and these web rings and Sailor Moon music. And I don't know what level of musician or music you're into, but there was a thing called mod tracking back in the day with programs like Octamed and Fast Tracker.
Oh, Pro Tracker.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do plenty of that. Do you know what? That was the last time I could make... Because you know how I do these a cappella songs? The reason why I started doing that is that when I moved from Amiga to PC, I couldn't tracking anymore. I used to do loads of little tunes. I wasn't good at it, but I used to do, I was good at it for a child. I used to do plenty of it. And then moved to PC and learned how to make MIDI, which was the closest I could come. And I used to make all these MIDIs, and then MIDI fell out of favor, but I kept doing it, and then it fell so out of favor that it was ridiculous I was still making them, so I completely stopped. And that was honestly the last time I understood music software, so I just started recording my own voice instead, because it's what I can understand.
It's funny you mentioned MIDI, slightly off topic, but I just spent the last hour editing a student's composition for his final high school exam in a MIDI editor. I'm the same. I've been using MIDI editors since, 95 or something, and I still to this day do huge amounts of work in them because I have the deft hand at it. I've just got so many years of experience.
Well, and now it's
easier.
And I imagine you're doing it properly with you're running it through various synthesizers and so on. What I was doing was just literally making a MIDI and put that on the web. Back when that wasn't acceptable. Back when that was an acceptable thing to do.
Yeah.
Except, and I remember I used to put little notes of them, which is like, you've got to play this on this. You have to have Yamaha soft synth for this one, and things like that.
Speaking of, if you're in the tracker scene, you'll know who I mean when I say the Lizard King.
I believe I do.
Yes. I don't know why, but for some reason, in the tracker scene, everyone just thanked the Lizard King. It's like, thanked this person, this person, this person, and the Lizard King. Because his tracking compositions are just off the charts, so to speak.
So with this, going back to social media, this would be a form of social media because you're sharing on a social platform media that you have created.
Yes.
Same as fan art. So in a way, I suppose forums have now collapsed under the weight of the social media definition.
Yeah. And just become their own. But there's still sites to share your tracking songs. There was even a mod plugin like the MIDI plugin, but for when people came to your website, they'd hear a tracked song as opposed to MIDI.
Oh wow! You could get that on websites, could you? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Because every single day of my life I listen to Nectarine Demoscene Radio, which is a streaming radio station of exactly what you're talking about, mods and XMs and the like. And well worth a listen if you haven't had a listen to that before. Nectarine Demoscene Radio. It's just a free streaming radio service of Amiga mods and the modern PC equivalents. Great stuff. And SIDs and YMs and AYs and all that.
I had many mods on my Amiga, and it just got to a point. The Amiga died, and I thought, oh, I'll just have to throw all of these out. But deep down, I felt maybe I shouldn't throw these out because I might meet an Amiga owner later on. Anyway, I threw them out, so they're lost to the ages forever now.
Oh, you threw them out.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I found out someone that I know on Facebook still has an Amiga. So how do I?
I've got like 4 Amigas here now.
Yeah, but you're in Europe.
That's true, and they're not set up. Yeah, but once all you need is someone who can turn them into something that you can listen to. I mean, are you talking about mods that you made yourself, or ones that you collected?
Yes. Yeah, Octamed. I loved Octamed.
Ah, did you throw out your own music that you made?
At the time, I had no way of bringing it back to life. I thought, oh, this is dead to the ages for now, so I'll just chuck it. So I just assumed it was going to be dead to the ages forever, not knowing that later down the track.
I've theoretically still got mine, but I'm scared to turn on the hard drive to find out if it's still alive. I'm guessing it isn't.
Right, because when I got a PC early on, one of the first things I looked for was that type of software. And I got Fast Tracker 2, and I've still got all of those from when I was 19 on this computer right here.
Oh, brilliant.
So great. And I've actually redone them, converted some of them into MIDIs and redone them through fancy software with VST, which is Virtual Studio Technology, which is super realistic sounding instruments that have been sampled.
In fact, actually, I ought to say, when I said that I stopped doing MIDIs, I've recently started again because it's a great way of sort of laying down a guide track for my a cappella songs. So even though I don't yet have a full grasp of really how to use VSTs and which ones to get and so on, I do have the Forefront piano one, which is just a nice piano sound, like a quite good realistic one, and that does the trick. I just sort of lay out what I'm going to record a cappella that way. And that has nothing to do with social media at all.
Back into social media, can I recommend if you're just getting back into it, there's a good software, Magix with an X, Music Studio. That's good for either a beginner or someone who's coming back to it, before spending hundreds, because it does all of the same stuff all the fancy ones do. It'll load your VSTs and your MIDIs and all that. It'll be fine, but just for actual simple notation, Sibelius. That is brilliant.
Oh, let me write some of this down then. Hang on, because I use Magix. What is it I use by Magix? The Audio Cleaning Lab is good for digitizing tapes and then fiddling with them a little bit.
All right.
And so I do that because I've got a gigantic tape collector. I'm one of the. I've never thrown away anything ever, and so firstly I have a very untidy house, but secondly I have all my tapes. So I've got under the bed there's this giant slide-out tray just full of millions of tapes because I used to. This is a topic for another day, but to sort of tease it, I used to have a small portable stereo with a little microphone, and I used to just carry this with me everywhere I could get away with it. So I have, from about like 1993 onwards, I have my life essentially recorded, and there's tapes made at school, and there's tapes made on holidays, and some of them are quite fly on the wall. There's one tape, I haven't found this in years, but I know it exists, that's just 2 elderly relatives, one of whom is now dead, just chatting to each other for an hour and a half. And that, if I can find that, that's interesting, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah, why not?
It is. speaking of elderly relatives and whatnot, social media has gotten to the point where now long lost relatives can find each other. Because you might know that you have a brother or sister or cousin out there, and their name, and you know they exist, and they know you all exist, but you and they have never met, and through some miracle, social media brings you together. It would even be good for missing persons.
It would, and I have a story about that. When I was teenager, about 13. Does that count as a teenager? Anyway,
Sure.
Anyway, I was a kid really, and we were, we were all. Me and my friends were into sort of. I mean, I'm a cartoonist and silly songist now, and that's kind of what I was then. And me and my friends were all into silliness of various kinds. And so one of the things that we had was a, like any group of annoying teenage friends, had a list of words that we had essentially invented and found amusing. And many of them I've gone on to use in comics and so on. But one of them was now this is going to be insensitive, so I must say that it was the work of a 13-year-old who was culturally insensitive. But we were flipping through the phone book one day and we found the most wonderful name that we'd ever seen. And to our, uneducated tongues, we thought this name was pronounced Kapustien-Skeege. And we thought this was a wonderful word. The Kapustien-Skeege family. It was the un. It was the un in the middle. And the fact that if it had ended with ski, ski, like as in the Russian... well, again, that's a stereotype. Maybe that's insensitive as well. But name ski. Then that would be one thing. But it ended with a J. So you had Kapusti ski or something like that. That's one thing. But Kapustien-Skeege really entertained us, and we just loved it. So we just added this word to our lexicon, and we would just go around saying Kapustien-Skeege, and we just thought it was quite funny. So anyway, I remembered this. Well, I mean, I'd say I remember this. It never went away. It was a word that I thought was music for most of my life. And then when I was in my 20s, I just went, wait a minute. I've got the internet now. I could probably find out how it's actually pronounced. Kapustien-Skeege, because it won't be that. It'll be Polish or something. So I went on Facebook, and what I found was not just someone called Kapustien-Skeege, which, by the way, is pronounced Kapustinski. I found the Kapustinski whose name we had found in the phone book, or at least I'd found his apparent, son who was about my age, who lived in the town where we, locally to where we lived, because it was the phone book for our area. Yeah. And so I found him, and he was very nice about it. And I just wrote to him, I was like, so what? Sorry about this. This is going to be a weird thing, but how do you pronounce your name? Because I've been wanting to know for about 15 years. And he was very nice about it. He said, oh, that's weird. Okay, yeah, it's Kapustinski. So there we go. It's not Kapustien-Skeege, but the thing is, I feel like now, because Kapustien-Skeege is such a wonderful word, I need to figure out a way to spell it without it being an insensitive version of a genuine family's name. So that's
say it again. Kapustien-Skeege.
Sorry.
Kapustien-Skeege.
Yeah.
But the real one is.
Oh, what? How to spell it? Oh, well, I don't want to give it away because it's not really any of my business. But I'll show you. I'll show you. Hang on.
I've just typed in the chat how I would spell it based on.
Oh, that. Well, now you're right there. Except for the un, he's put OON for the un. But the thing is, what's funny about it is that it's just un. it needs to just be an N in the middle of nowhere. But apart from that, that's quite good. It was really spelled. I assume that people won't be able to see this in the playback. It was spelt like that originally.
Oh wow!
As you can see,
That's fantastic.
We were applying no knowledge of foreign languages. We were making no guesses as to how it could be pronounced. We were literally just spelling it out phonetically in the English.
Brilliant.
Yeah, there you go. That would work.
Or if you wanted to use it in your comic books or something, you could end it with a G and have the play on the G being pronounced as a soft G, not a hard G.
Yeah, or have DGE or any number of things. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, but there we go. Social media allowed me to finally catch up with this genuine part of my life, which was all right, an unkind part on the, potentially, but he didn't seem to mind. So okay.
Good on him. But I think it would be hard to top that story.
Yeah. So, what do you think the future of social media is?
Oh God.
Well, I found an interesting statistic earlier, and I've kept it here, that the fastest growing demographic on Twitter is the 55 to 64 age bracket, which in Australia is the last decade of retirement, like before retirement. I'm fairly certain that's still correct. The retirement age is about 65. I can't verify that right now, but yeah, I find the professional level is I guess where the future is. LinkedIn marketers are loving it. I think it'll implode very soon, though. That's my thoughts.
What do you guys think about a website like LinkedIn? Because you're sort of connecting with people for no reason. I don't really know anyone that uses that as a place to search for potential employees.
Depends what industry you're in.
Mm-hmm. So which industry do you think it's more aimed at? White collar?
White collar professional industries. I knew a guy very briefly, but I noticed through my LinkedIn feed that he's a television producer here in Sydney, and he got a new job via contacts that he'd made on LinkedIn. How much of that was real world after the initial connection on LinkedIn, and how much the LinkedIn profile actually factored into it, or whether it was just a means of communication, I'm not aware of. But I've heard stories, I've read articles, but I've got no real world experience to back it up, and I guess that's the difficult thing. If you're not a lawyer or a doctor or one of these people that walk in these different circles to us, then I guess we'll never know. I can't say I've ever met a musician who's got anything but, a boring 25 minutes out of LinkedIn, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know what LinkedIn is. I've never figured it out. But then I never figured out what MySpace was either.
Yeah. Horses for courses, I guess. I don't think any of us really travel in the world of, Mercedes as a pay packet perk, so I think it's definitely reserved for the linked.
But that's what LinkedIn is. That's for them.
The LinkedIn,
yeah, I'd say so. And freelancers, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of,
yeah,
I was just going to bring up the artist's variant. What I consider it the artist's variant of LinkedIn, which is DeviantArt.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that's particularly a social media platform, but it has media and it has social elements.
I would say that it is, because you can post your art there, and then people can comment on it, and then they can share that to Facebook or Twitter or whatever. So it's almost like a website. Go.
It kind of is, isn't it? It's sort of the only reason why I feel as if I don't lump it in with social media is purely because it was there before anyone was saying social media. But yes, it has all the hallmarks of it. People are posting things, commenting on each other's things. In terms of, it's a funny one, DeviantArt, because it's sort of its reputation can be harmful to what it could be used for, if you see what I mean. It's among people who I haven't been on DeviantArt in years. I've got an account, but I haven't used it in a long time. But when I was there, I used to defend it quite a lot against people who, not being on DeviantArt or not being artists or whatever, had only heard about the dodgy side, and there's a very dodgy side, and there's plenty of it, and there's lots of that going on. So if you are someone who just wants to spend all day drawing pornography of My Little Pony, then DeviantArt is somewhere you can do that, and that's the sort of thing that gets seen. Now, when I was last there, I do remember that there was it was one of those things like, when people attack or criticize social media and they say, oh, social media is just everyone posting about their breakfast or whatever, and then the automatic defense of that is, well, only if you follow people who do that. You get to pick what you see there because you get to pick who you follow. And the same was definitely true of DeviantArt last time I was there. There really are phenomenal artists on there, and if you were to set up an account that follows them, I can imagine what you would see every day is just a smorgasbord of wonderful things. But I feel like Tumblr's now taken that over, and those same artists are now posting the same things there. DeviantArt isn't really. There's something about it that feels like it isn't quite compatible, like intercompatible with the other social media. So if I wanted to post something on Twitter, I feel like it would be easier to do that if it was on Tumblr than if it was on DeviantArt. But I don't understand Tumblr very well either, so I'm not sure.
Right. So another thing about this is a website, you're saying you don't lump it in there because it predates what we consider social media to be, which is fair enough. But we live in a world where if a website doesn't update itself to modernisms with that website will probably just die and perish.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you note that, because I've been doing a lot of research into this area as part of my recent studies, as well as my new businesses that are being developed. And the website is moving away from the websites that we grew up with. And one of the biggest trends now is that, let's say for an artist, if you have ever looked at Lorde, the New Zealand singer, her website consists of a giant high-res picture of her face in some artistic, shadowy, David Lynch-style cinematography, and that's it. Links to her social media feeds at the bottom, that's all it is. And it's a trend that I've noticed is popping up all across the web with these newer artists, where the official website is a central hub for all of their social media sites, because each social media site represents what a website page used to be. So you've got Instagram for your photos, and you've got Twitter for your news feed, and you've got Facebook for Twitter more for your, I guess, your personal connections, Facebook for a news feed with your activities and updates and whatever else you're into, if you want to, Tumblr or, the myriad of others. So websites are changing.
I would say Twitter was the news feed, simply because, like, I'm having an event on this day at this date, be there.
Yeah, I find I've started to...
people their personal life.
Yeah, I've started to disregard Twitter, though. I tried to keep up with it, and I valiantly tried for nearly 2 years, and it's a mess. It's like walking into a giant market or a bazaar, or whichever term you want to use, and trying to listen to everybody's conversations as they argue over fruit and heckle over the price of handmade wooden toys. It's just impossible to get anything from that site at all. I remember early on I was talking to a friend of mine about why they didn't have it. This is going back 2 or 3 years now. And they said, well, Twitter's, it's a current thing, and it's really only for people who have a mobile and who are on their phone all the time. And at the time, I could just imagine that all of these mobile zombies walking around staring at their Twitter feed, waiting for the next message to scroll down, and bumping into trees and light poles.
I've done that, yeah.
But now, if you were to try to watch Twitter on your phone, you wouldn't have time to read each of the minute texts, because they're just pumping them out. And every day I get 4 or 5 mass-marketed, so-and-so has added you from West Virginia Coast's hip-hop label Def Ham Pork Records, and it's like, there's too many. I can't handle, So I think.
But you're comfortable with Facebook, though, are you? You use that instead.
I would say that I am going to need Facebook surgically removed from my retinas when it finally goes out of fashion.
See, I'm exactly the opposite of what you just said. Like, everything you just described is Facebook to me, whereas I'm comfortable on Twitter. So I think it is just... I guess it's just what you have the capacity to to settle into. And for me, I think I have a capacity of essentially one. And I have settled into Twitter, and it is because of phones. It's because I wait sometimes, or or I've got nothing to do sometimes, and then it's just I want to see someone say something, and you just there it is. There's someone saying something. I can look at that.
That's brilliant.
But Facebook.
Go.
Sorry? I was just going to say
have a
that
point to
Facebook
make.
has a... No, in fact, I think I'm changing the subject slightly, so you make your point first.
It's fun.
Now that I was going to... phones. So you've migrated from PC to phone, and your phone is where you collect all your social media. Very
I do it-
slowly making that transition, whereas me predominantly on the PC. So
Yeah.
I can do Google, Facebook, Twitter all at once with just multiple tabs open. Where phones are only a sort of a one at a time kind of device.
Kind of, yes. And I agree with that. But I think because of iPads and because of smartphones, those websites are slowly becoming... Well, no, not slowly becoming. I think they have become, certainly Twitter, slightly more native to a handheld device than they are to a computer screen. They're not widescreen oriented, for instance.
You've just made me think of Windows 8 there. The reason I don't like Windows 8 is it seems to me to be aimed at the hipster market that are all in on social media and touch screens and stuff like that. So it's aimed at a much narrower market than what Windows 7, which was a much broader market. Anyone could just sit down, step in, and use it straight away. Whereas Windows 8, you sort of have to be super familiar with Facebook, Twitter, touch screens, phones.
Yeah, it's
possibly.
definitely a surface designed for tablets. I have a laptop with a touchscreen, so I can sit here and I can't poke the camera, but I can sit here and change my tabs on my laptop with my fingers and zoom in and zoom out and everything like that.
This is something I've been wondering about. When you do that, are you not reaching miles to just do the simplest little action that usually you could do without moving at all on a mouse?
My screen's really close to my eyeballs.
But
You see,
thing.
isn't that that's what I would do as well? But surely that's not a good thing for your eyeballs, is it?
Well, I still have a mouse because I hate trackpads.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was hideously against it. I didn't even know it had a touchscreen until I went to wipe something off it one day, and I ended up closing 6 programs and opening 7 more. But it took me a while to get. I mean, even the tablet style start menu. I didn't start using it until I realized I had a swipe function and I could zoom around on it like the tablet. And now I think it's fantastic. But I find it really helpful if, say, I've got this is Mommy, this is my black Strat Mommy. And if I'm sitting here noodling away on the guitar, because of the way I sit, right, this is pointing there, but this is the mouse hand all the way back over here, and I've got to lean over my poor guitar and to get to it. I can just take the closest hand and go plonk, poke the screen, and I can stop and start and all of those kind of things. So I actually find that I'm starting to use it a lot more. I'm starting to very much enjoy it, and I'm starting to use the live integration features of Social Network more and more and more on my half tablet, half laptop.
Yeah. Okay. The point Dave was making, you're not reaching miles versus using a mouse. But I would say you are reaching miles with a mouse. You've just become so complacent with it that you don't think anything of it. So it's just a simple migration to go from mouse to touchscreen. And when you get used to the touchscreen, then eventually you'll think nothing of that.
See, I agree with that. I agree with that in a handheld tablet or a phone. The reason why I say that is that I am now, if I can just demonstrate, look, I've got my arm comfortably here on the chair I'm sitting on.
Yep.
And there's a mouse on the end of it. And so in order to do something, I only have to make a very small movement. I've only got, hang on, let me measure it. there's only that much space for me to move my mouse on the desk, and that covers the whole screen. So it's a very small thing. Whereas if I was going to use my monitor as a touch screen, then it'd be more of a, I'm reaching all the way over there. You know what I mean? It's and that's because I've got my computer set up because it's a PC. Now, if it was a touchscreen PC and I was going to use it all the time, see, I had to lean just to get there. Then I would be moving my screen closer to me, and I don't know if that's that good of a thing. I would do it though. I definitely would do it, and I think I sit too close to my monitor now, and I'm aware of that. But over here, I have my Cintiq screen, which I use for drawing, and then I'm happy to turn and pull it over to me on a little. Can you see that? No, I've got it on a little robot arm thing, and I can just draw on it wherever I happen to be. So not robot arm, but like a mechanical.
Wishful thinking.
A robot arm, but that doesn't move itself. And I guess that might be what I would do if I had a touch screen. I might put it on one of those, have it over there, and then pull it towards me to use, something like that. But that's lavish, it's £100 for the mechanical arm, and not everyone's going to be able to do that. So I don't know, but yeah, for things like social media. Sorry, Ian, what was that?
On the positive side, you're getting more exercise because you're actually physically lifting your arm up.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all.
On the even more positive side, if you see, I don't have a tablet, I don't have an iPad or anything like that. But if I did, then you could use that while walking in the park or anything. You get even more exercise. What was the point that I was going to make before that was slightly changing the subject? Oh, I know. It was just that when talking about Twitter versus Facebook. In my case, and this is because I haven't sorted myself out a sort of, I guess, like a Demon Tomato Dave Facebook as opposed to my own, which is something I need to do because I've started to get YouTube followers friend requesting me on Facebook. And the trouble is that for me, Facebook is difficult to use in the way I can use Twitter, i.e. to communicate with the world in a two-way sort of sense, because it's just so full of my friends and family. And that's a different thing. That's a different side of life. They're not. I don't want to, separate them out to the point where like, oh, my real life friends shouldn't watch my videos or whatever. But what I mean is, and on Twitter, I've got all my real life friends who have Twitter. I follow them. They follow me. But Facebook, maybe this is just because of where it came from and what it used to be. But I still think of that as like the collection of childhood friends. And like school friends.
You can set yourself up a like page. That's more for the fans.
I mean, I'll have to do something. And the only reason I haven't is I haven't yet figured out exactly how Facebook works. Whether it would be better to have a completely different account, or whether you can't do that, or whether I should have this kind of page or that kind of page because there's more than one kind. And I've never figured it out. It doesn't make any sense to me. And that's just because I haven't spent enough time doing it. But on Twitter, it's simple. On Twitter, you can just say, hi, I've done this video, watch it. Hi, I'm doing this now, I'm watching this, I'm thinking about this. And you can just say everything and nobody minds. I think with Facebook, I'd be tempted to, because there's no limit, I wouldn't stop typing. And I would just go on, and that would be my whole day.
And Google Plus has become almost a combination of the two, where you can follow someone, and it doesn't have to be a mutual acceptance. You can just put someone in your circles and you're following them. And it's a combination of Facebook, Twitter, and Skype with things like this, and YouTube. So it's basically combined them all into one.
Yeah. Yes, I'm interested in the
sleeping giant.
Sorry, the sleepy giant?
Oh, no, froze. A sleeping giant, I've heard it referred to as a sleeping giant. But it's everything we want, we just don't realize it yet.
Oh, really? See, I'm still. Sorry, I missed something. Are we talking about Google Plus there?
Yes, Google Plus.
Yeah. Yeah, Google Plus. It's like the Bing of social medias. It's like they made this thing, and it was its only way of, even if it was, or even if it is, the best one, it has to contend with the fact that we've already accepted one, and we don't really want another one.
Facebook made, when Google Plus came out and started doing certain things, Facebook made a lot of changes in accordance with what Google Plus had taken from Facebook and done better.
Oh, really?
Facebook did have friends lists, but they were a bit after Google had their circles, Facebook changed it so your friends lists were much more manageable and you could be much more specific with who was on what list and how well you could share it.
Well, that's what I need to look into, I suppose. Yeah. By the way, and this is for your benefit as well as the listeners, I genuinely don't usually interrupt people as much as this. It's just that I'm on a few seconds of delay. So I think nobody's saying something, and then I'll launch in, and then I'm interrupting. So I'm sorry whenever I do that.
That's all right. We interrupt each other all the time in Australia because we have to. Because otherwise the other person will just keep on talking. I find that's an Australian thing, certainly in my personal life. It's like, okay, just wait for them, take a breath, and dive in.
Yeah. I think we do that, but I don't know whether we do that in England or whether it's just become something that sort of me and my friends do, because we definitely do that.
But whereas if you look at something like Game of Thrones, each line is executed perfectly. No one talks over anyone. Everyone waits exactly to the end,
isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's nice when you get a movie when people do talk more realistic and there's just that slight overlap of conversation.
Oh, I mean, because of the tragic death of Robin Williams, I have been. I think I mentioned it when we were talking about films, but I am a lifelong Popeye fan of the film.
That.
And that's directed by Robert Altman, and there's a certain amount of that you were talking about overlap. But yesterday, I realized that, wait a minute, if I've been a fan of this thing my whole life, really perhaps I ought to watch more of his work. So, which I hadn't done before. So I went onto Netflix to see what Robert Altman films were there, and MASH is there, and I hadn't seen it. So I popped it on, and it was exactly what you're talking about. There's never a moment in the film when fewer, decided to be very pedantic with myself there, when fewer than 3 people are talking over each other at once. Or every line of dialogue is underneath something else that someone else is saying, and it's very interesting to kind of try and pick apart.
Speaking of Robin Williams' death, and apparently he had early onset Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Parkinson's, yes. Because of social media, we're all aware of this. 20 years ago, we would have had to wait to have seen it on the news or whatever, but now I still see things about Robin Williams in my social media. Robin Williams' 5 most inspirational quotes or whatever.
Yeah, he's a very good point to talk about with this, because essentially his death it encapsulates everything about social media. So first of all, we found out so much quicker than we would have done 5 years ago. I remember the first, and this is a, oh God, I don't even know whether to say this on the air. A confession that I have is that when the first thing I saw a tweet that said, "I hope this news about Robin Williams isn't true," and I thought, right, there's 2 possibilities here. One is that he's died, and one is that he's done something very bad, and I hope it isn't that one. Which essentially kind of means that I preferred that he'd have died, so I don't, and I didn't want him to die, but you know how it is with 70s celebrities right now. So I was like, please. Yeah, I was like, I've got through Rolf. I can't have this as well. Anyway, so then we found out within minutes of that he died. I say found out, it was a rumor, but of course it turned out to be true. We found out before the news reported it that it was a suicide. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be debated. When the news got hold of it, and this I think this is not the bad side of social media, this is the bad side, this is what the print media would call the bad side of social media. They, the printed news, now have to one-up the simple fact of delivering facts. And so we already have the facts, and they know we do. So they now are stepping more towards the sensational, and so of course we get these graphic descriptions of how he killed himself, which nobody needs to know. And I mean, there's some academic interest in it, but you know, years later, mate, we don't need to know on the night and have photos of his hand. And then there was the outpouring, and this is a wonderful part of social media. Previously, when someone dies who was fondly remembered, you'd go, "Ah," and you'd have nowhere to put it. And this time, there was just this explosion of tribute and sort of just like, because of course, and another thing with Robin Williams is that because I think if we're being entirely honest, there had been there was a sort of dual feeling about him before he died, which is that he was very good at what he did, but a lot of his films were, say, overly sappy or throwaway or whatever. I didn't intend to see this new film of his that came out, The Angriest Man in New York, or whatever it was called. Now I kind of
a lot of noise, buddy.
Yeah, that's really loud. Now I feel like maybe I would see it. I don't know, but when he died, it was like there was this sudden realization, wasn't there, of like, wait, hang on, he did do all these things we love. Why did we accept as a reason to stop thinking of him that fondly the fact that he might have done a couple of films we weren't into? And I wonder if that's a good thing. I wonder if we'll start to think of other people the same way. Like, wait a minute, you know, let's not be so quick to I guess, yeah, or to stop caring, because there's always actors and comedians and celebrities, isn't there, where they did stuff you love for a number of years, and then they just slightly change direction, and you go, oh, I don't care about them anymore. Which kind of didn't happen exactly with him, but there was this back of the mind sort of like, oh, it's not as important now. And then he dies, and you go, wait, no, he's like, I can think of loads of stuff he did that I massively care about. And in my case, it was Popeye and Aladdin and Mork and Mindy and da-da-da and da-da-da-da. There's various things.
Have either of you seen 1 Hour Photo?
Not yet. I now intend to, more strongly than ever, although I already intended to.
Right. Maddie, have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's like here's the thing, it was marketed as a as a psychological thriller, and it kind of is, but it's really just ultimately, spoilers, a story about a lonely man that you end up, you don't feel creeped out by him, you feel sorry for him.
Oh. Gosh.
That's more, the previews made it think, oh, he's going to be some weird ass creeper, and he is, but he's just a lonely man.
God, I can. Do you know what? That explains a lot, because I've been trying to think, like, oh, it'd be interesting to see Robin Williams play just an evil man, but he's usually more nuanced than that, and that explains it. I can 100% imagine him playing that brilliantly. Yeah, I'll wait to see that now. But then there's the other side of social media, isn't there? Because as soon as this happened, someone somewhere, or some group somewhere, decided now's our chance to make his daughter sad and impress our friends. And what they did was they mocked up photographs of his body and sent it to her. And allegedly they were relatively realistic. I haven't seen them. I don't know. And it worked. She was very upset, and she's now left. She's had to shut down her Twitter account and so on and so on. And that's a shame, of course. But you know, firstly because someone was bullied, and secondly because it was someone who was a kind of a fixture on social media and was liked there. And that, at the time, what I said, and at the time it was last week, so I still say it now, is that I wasn't always elderly, and I've been younger, and I never trolled anyone to that extent or did that, but I did get. There was a time when I would have found that sort, not that, but like teasing people on the internet funny. So I understand what it feels like to be a troll and to experience the lulls. But doing something that's genuinely horrible like that, and then on that particular day is interesting to me, because what it means is that those people who would have been a group of people, there wouldn't have been many of them. We're not talking, it wouldn't have been thousands. Would it even have been 100? Doubt it, don't know. That small group of people would have done that thing, upset her, she leaves the internet, they go, ha-ha, we did it, that was, I guess, our goal, or at least it represents an end game, ha-ha-ha. They all enjoy, they all have a laugh together, and let's put that, there's a nugget, there's the enjoyment that they experienced from that. On any other day, what would happen is someone would tease someone else, that would happen, and they'd look around and go, ha-ha, we won, and all their friends are going, ha-ha-ha, we won. On that day, they must, at some point, have looked around and noticed the difference in perspective between that little enjoyment that they had made and the giant outpouring of support for someone who was nice that day, you know? Any other time they wouldn't have noticed it, but that day, the celebration of someone being unpleasant must have been dwarfed by the celebration that engulfed it for someone who was pleasant. And I wonder if perhaps that, more than any other instance of sort of trolling and abuse of women on Twitter and so on that I've seen, I feel as if those people are probably going to live to regret it very soon and kind of go, oh, why was I that kid, you know?
Then again, there's people who just they genuinely don't care because they don't have a mental or emotional understanding of why what they did was wrong.
Yeah.
And in their minds, theirs is the bigger triumph because they triumphed in their tiny, small little worlds of, say, 5 friends or whatever. And they don't understand this big overall thing. That's just something that's out there. That's not personal to them. Whereas if they troll someone and succeed, that's personal to them.
This brings up an issue I've always had with traditional media, but I don't know whether it's because I'm overexposed to social media or whether it really is just getting worse as traditional media moves into the digital age. But if you say you take the small group of, you know, rat bags, let's call them rat bags, and you compare them to the giant outpouring of grief and appreciation and respect for what he did, which, just as a side note, I really, really hope that there's an enterprising group of netizens out there who are collecting and gathering and are going to curate a website that actually displays the positive outpouring of, I mean, the amount of media that I've seen that's come out, it would be a shame if it all just kind of sits out there like fragmented pieces of a hard drive. That's something I really hope someone's doing that, But what I was going to say was, you see, and I find this with any kind of troll that's picked up by the media, the proper media, is the fuel that they give them. So little rat bags in the corner, over this corner, there may have been 10 of them. They may have only posted, let's say, 5 pictures. But by the traditional media taking that, and as you say, grasping at anything they can to match the sensationalism that social media has done so well, with us all being able to contribute. Newspapers and TV stations are desperate to capitalize on that as well. They will take the rat bag over here and they will throw that rat bag and their actions out into the social media world using all the powers at their disposal. So when that happened, I saw more, and this is my Facebook experience, more reactions from traditional media on social media, so newspapers, television stations, current affairs programs, about the rat bags, over here again, than I actually saw the traditional organised media commenting on the outpouring of goodwill. So, and I always have a problem with that. I find that any small action that's horrible, it's become the organised media platforms on social media who tend to go looking for the rat bags.
God, you're right. I never even thought of that. Yeah, because God, I didn't think of it, because Twitter is so much part of my life and Facebook of yours that, like, it's easy to forget that not everyone knows that. So if you weren't on social media at all, then the experience you might have had of Robin Williams' death is it would have been an article that would have said, Robin Williams has died, da-da-da, he was in this, he did that, here's his career. And then they tend to end with, like, user Speedy Britches 124 says, I miss Robin Williams. You know what I mean? There'll be, like, 3 Twitter quotes, which gives you the impression that a couple of people on Twitter mentioned him, when in fact it was an unprecedented. My friend Mouse Talica said that it was like a wake. It was. I don't think there's ever been such a big, like, organized, just outpouring of sort of pleasantness as on the day that Robin Williams died, and the next day, and the next day, and it's kind of still happening.
It's still going. It's still happening. Yeah, definitely. And it's. I think it's going to get more organised as the weeks roll on. And there'll be the initial reaction, there'll be independent reactions, and then there'll be organised reactions. So
I hope you're right that someone does collate it, because it would be a shame to lose that. And I feel as if when Zelda gets back, maybe it ought to be all put aside for her some way, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the way that we do this for people when we lay wreaths at their doorstep and this kind of thing. But it'd be a little bit less intrusive, because it's a little care package of beautiful memories and fond tributes that when the family's ready to accept it, the internet community can go, this should keep you going for another few years, you know? So hopefully someone's doing it out there.
And of course the other problem is that there is... I don't think they're too bad about this, but we have to admit that the traditional media, including TV news, and including the not crazy TV news, so not just Fox News, but, you know, all of it, kind of has a vested interest in appearing to be superior to social media. And so they are naturally going to report on anything they can think of as an example of bad stuff happening in those spheres. And as a result of that, I think my mum still reckons that that Twitter is essentially a throwaway lunch describing service, and I think a lot of people do, and that's because, of course, they get their information from the traditional media, who must be spinning these things to be bad things, or at least impotent, needless things. I remember someone on Twitter just the other day saying people criticize internet activism as if they were in bed or on the toilet the day the internet became the single most important form of media in the planet. And that's kind of how it feels. You know, you've got this, and it is putting a dividing line between us. I feel divided from older generations more than I ever did when I was a child, because we're all adults who are in this this blossoming world of communication where we really have a chance to get things right. For example, look at Tumblr, and people complain about sort of Tumblr activism and so on, and sometimes it goes bad. But what you have is a wide-eyed generation of people who are about to be adults, just any day now, who are dedicated to ending bigotry forever, and forms of bigotry that 5-10 years ago we may not have been aware existed, and they're campaigning against it, and they're going to win. They're going to get rid of it eventually, or at least among their sort of social class or whatever the hell it is. I mean, because it's a different thing now. It's like we used to have, and we still have, like, social classes, as in, you know, middle class and working class and things like that. But now we're going to have this, I guess, a little caveat on the end of that. There'll be a little badge which is like social media class. Where did you grow up? Tumblr people, you know? And I feel as if that group in the next is going to do good things for the world by being so into social justice. And of course, maybe maybe now and then there's a misfire and someone who doesn't deserve it gets piled on for something they said. But on the whole, I feel as if it's a movement towards good, and I feel as if especially when the people who are doing it, who are by and large teenagers, get a bit older and take those same opinions and tame them and become a force that can really improve the world. And I think that's going to happen. And yet, among the people who aren't in social media, like I am and like you are, it is still seen as an irrelevance. And they just don't know.
I feel
it's almost like
dividing line.
Politicians, because our Australian Prime Minister at the moment is an absolute twit.
I understand he's a bit of a piece of work, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The previous government were going to initiate something called the NBN, the National Broadband Network, which would give Australian 100 megabits per second past 99% of homes.
Oh, gosh.
This government squashed that, completely squashed it, because they're of an era and have grown up in a lifestyle where social media is not a thing. They're all talking about how much money they made on their last real estate investment.
Yeah.
You know, how good was your last tennis game? They're all talking about those kinds of things.
And I'm guessing, did they squash it on the grounds of, well, people will be able to pirate things?
Oh, well, they're already well aware that people pirate things. And that was another thing they tried to squash, but that's people are going to find a way around that one way or the other. But the reason they mostly squashed it was finances. You know, this is going to cost us too much money to roll this out in this time.
Oh, wow.
Some parts of Australia already have it. Some very small parts in my hometown have it. All of Tasmania has it. They did Tasmania first. But there was parts that were squashed that were... It would have cost them more money to squash it than just let them finish it. It was sort of like halfway through. That's really all I have to say about that. But just getting back to trolls, the thing about trolls is, or ratbags, as Maddie was calling them, they have this perception in their own mind that they're untouchable because they're on the internet. Only they know what they're doing, and maybe a very select few friends. Their parents don't know what they're doing. They're probably complete angels in front of their parents, and when they go to social functions, meeting people for Christmas and stuff like that. So again, it's glorified in their own tiny little world. So you would hope.
And you know what's even worse is that it's possible to be a troll. I wouldn't say of the showing Zelda Williams what's allegedly, you know, those photographs. I think those people are probably just horrible people. But it's possible to be one of your ordinary level trolls who nevertheless do deeply upset a lot of people, and be a good person, not even pretending, because the internet, if you're in the right place in the right group, you can very easily have your mind changed. I've felt this happening to me a number of times, depending on if you're in a group you want to impress, if you're in a group who... For example, if you're on a forum where the collective sense of humor works in context and actually is more nuanced than simply let's be unpleasant to someone, and yet it only... Do you see what I mean? It only works if you are in that group and understand how the sense of humor works. Once the tendrils reach out and touch someone else... I think back to my time on Something Awful, on the Something Awful forums, which I was on for a long time, and I still am. The only reason I sort of think of it in the past tense is that a year or so ago they suddenly changed it to be a bit more... Well, they changed the GBS forum anyway, which is sort of the just whatever stuff forum, without a very specific category. They changed that to err on the side of 4chan and sort of they got sick of all the caring, so they changed it, and I kind of haven't been back. But there, I remember a number of occasions where somebody would be doing something stupid on the internet, something genuinely stupid, something that you can't help but mock, and it would be mocked, whatever it happened to be, and then at some point the person would find out. And they would come to Something Awful, they would get an account, and they would start posting there. And that was always the high point, because you all knew that some. Oh, Matt's back. Hello. Right, Matty, you're back.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you knew that things were going to kick off, and it was going to become very entertaining. And at the time, I remember sort of rubbing my hands and going, "Haha, this is 10 years ago. Ha ha ha, this is going to be funny." And I would never do anything, and I wouldn't go to them on, I wouldn't post. But that was always going to be the funny moment. But of course, looking back, these are just people who didn't get the particular sense of humor of that website, or didn't spend a lot of time posting on forums, so they didn't understand the etiquette of it. So everything they did was a mistake and could be further laughed at. And it just doesn't seem like as much. It doesn't seem like it seems like a waste of time. It's not that worth doing. But I know that in context, while you are reading that and while you're in that group, it feels really funny. So I do get why they feel that way. It's just that, I don't know, I guess I'm just older now, so I try and think about other people more, I suppose.
There's a flip side to that. And it's something that I find as infuriating when I'm dealing with social media and forums, which is the sycophant. Oh my god, everything you do is so wonderful. Because those kind of people, I feel, block a conversation as much as a cyberbully or somebody who's outside the social clique and it is making those kind of, public gaffes. I find those kind of people, whether they have a lack of, as you say, a lack of knowledge of the interface that you're communicating through, the etiquette involved in the social situation, or they're just morons whose only response is, I hate that, I like that, with absolutely no critical thinking in the middle. But I find that we tend to, I suppose, as humans, focus on the negative a lot more, but I find that the yes men of the internet are definitely a bigger population. Well, yes people, to be more politically correct, are a larger population.
So what? Give me an example of like when that would come up.
First thing that springs to mind, there's a particular guitar maker, a luthier in Australia. He's in Perth, so he's only just considered Australian. Still part of the country, but far enough away that no one ever really goes there. No, I'm kidding. He's an avid social media person. He's much more of a Facebook user, which is where my interaction comes from.
Yeah.
And he deals in incredibly expensive, high-end, handmade, personalized electric guitars. So he'll put things up. He'll get a shipment of wood that has some amazing pattern, and he'll just put a picture of a plank of wood on a table, and he'll write some witty comment about it. And he will get, in the first 10 minutes, in excess of 50, sometimes even over 100 comments. This is in the first 10 minutes of putting a picture of a plank of wood on a table with everything from, his name's Perry, oh my god, Perry, you're so amazing, that wood's incredible, and oh my god, so sexy, I want that on my guitar, and yada yada yada. And not a single comment is in any way constructive or contributing to a discussion about this man's craft and passion and all of this kind of thing. He is very good at, if you do ask an intelligent question or you're genuinely struggling to understand the significance of the particularly interesting looking piece of wood on the table, he latches onto it. And so I find it's a good marker of how many of these people interacting with his social media presence are actually posting intelligent, useful, or in some way having some meaning to their post and their contribution, because he will pick up on it and he will comment. And therefore it's easy to track, saying that, there's 100 comments and he's only responded to 3. I take that as being, okay, well, there's 3 people who actually said something worth saying, and then there's 97 people who are just, having a kerfuffle over a plank of wood on the table, and I find that a lot. But we tend to get, ignorant of that noise, because we go, oh, that dude said something about that person's mother or whatever, and we go and we dig into them, but then there was like 197,000 people who said really meaningless but well-meaning, polite things.
That's true. I think I'm much more tolerant of that, partly because essentially I still need it. I'm at a position where like I'm posting songs and things, and well, not I haven't done any songs in a while, but I'm doing them now. But I post videos and things, and I do sort of require some people to say that was good in order to know we should keep doing it. But I think what you have underlying that is the people who really have nothing to say, and they just go, that was good, plank of wood. It's the fact that they have nothing to say is actually in their favor here, because what they're doing is they're going, right, I like this person and their work. I want them to know that, but I haven't got anything to say. And so they'll just keep going, I like you, I like you. And it is nice, it comes from a place where they're trying to communicate that love. And even if, if they don't have anything to say, that doesn't make them a bad person. They're still trying to be nice. But yes, it does mean that sometimes with people who have a very big audience, which means a lot of people who are doing that, it can, for someone who's who isn't either a fan or a hater and just wants to casually observe it, yes, it can be a lot of chatter, can't it? And,
it's a lot of noise, yeah.
And I think there are people who I think if I'm examining myself closely, I'm sure there are people on the internet, creative people or whatever, who I have never paid attention to because I thought, oh, they're just one of those popular people. For example, I couldn't tell you whether or not I like PewDiePie. I've never seen his work because it seems almost like, well, I don't need to. He's got enough people.
But yeah, I did the same thing. I went a step further and I hit subscribe, but I never watched a video of his for the very same reason. It was, well, I'm not one of them. I don't particularly want to, I subscribed because I go through phases where I get bored, and I get on the internet and I find the top 25 list of whatever, pictures of crabs walking sideways or whatever, and then I just go through and follow them all and I mean, it's probably one of my Twitter feeds, just completely chaotic as well. And I just, okay, top 10 gamers, all right, okay. And then after a while, if I don't see anything from them, I will remove them. So I never felt any need to support his endeavors or comment or anything like that. I've started commenting more in the last few weeks as we continue with this, and I contemplate getting my own YouTube presence, in some way, shape, or form, which I've got a few ideas circulating, because I've found, as you were saying before, that I like certain people and I want them to know that, even if I have nothing to say. But I also feel that, and I do this with live music here in Sydney as well, that if I expect people to come and pay money to watch me play music, I should be prepared to do the same for others. So in preparation for public praise or ridicule on the internet, I feel I need to be participating in that just as much as I am here commenting on it.
Yes, and this is on topic. This is a social media thing. I kind of almost want to be able to squash something that is sort of a bit of common wisdom that we all have, but that I have disagreed with for the longest time, which is the don't read the comments sentiment. I disagree with that. I think that, or at least, well, hang on, I did disagree with that, and I still kind of do, but I have just recently been seeing some examples where now I get it. So, like, I thought when they said don't read the comments, and people tend to talk about YouTube comments and think of YouTube commenters as essentially just idiots, and I don't agree with that at all. There's a lot of, if you do read the YouTube comments, yes, there's some stupid people there, and especially, God forbid a woman should ever make a video, because there'll be a lot of them in her comments telling her to stop making them. But if you're lucky enough that you see good comments, there are great comments to be had, and there's a whole social thing there. It's the same as anywhere. There are a lot of people who want to shut down whoever they disagree with, and sadly, see, there's the really sad thing is that there's a huge number on YouTube of young women communicating with each other and making videos and vlogs and things like this, and of course a lot of them get those idiots who try and shut them down, and of course the answer to that is that they should of course not stop, and there should be more and more people and more videos and drown out the trolls and the misogynists and the like, and then the guys don't get anything comparable to that, but sometimes they'll be, oh, you're not a very good this or whatever. There's always going to be someone in the comments who is just being unpleasant. But filter all of that out, and it's kind of the same thing as with DeviantArt. If you subscribe to the right people, you get the right commentary. There is a real social aspect of YouTube. The trouble is it happens in the same space as the trolls. So, but if you can learn to filter it out and just see the good one, my policy is on YouTube you are able to remove any comments you want, but my policy is that I don't. I feel as if if people think I'm an idiot, then I've no reason to stop them. But I've seen lots of people who do have a very good reason to stop them because they get genuine abuse, which I don't at this point. Maybe at some point I will.
Are you
but I'm
at some point?
I'm not hoping I will. No, I'm not hoping I will. And I mean, now and then, I get people who don't like what I do or don't like me. That's fine. That's just a law of averages thing. Once you've got a certain number of views or whatever, some of them are going to be from people who don't like you. I accept that, and that's fine. And I kind of feel as if someone launches into a big, horrible attack on you, then I just trust everyone else to recognize that it says that speaks only about the person and not about the recipient of the abuse. But I can say that because I'm lucky. I tick the boxes the trolls don't pick on. I'm a man and I'm white and so on and so on. So they really are only going to pick on my work or my personality or whatever it is, which stuff that actually is stuff that you can criticize. And no, not everyone on YouTube is so lucky. So
I find gamer girls, because I follow a lot of gamers, guys and girls, but gamer girls get it the worst. You're not a real gamer girl. Yeah. You're just pretending. You just want the attention.
That is it's almost a movement. It's such a piece of. There's a group out there who accepts that as knowledge that there is such a thing as a gamer. I mean, let me say on the record that I am obsessed with games to most people's degree. I spend my life playing them. I play games nearly every day. I've grown up with them. I love them dearly, and they are important in my heart. But I am nothing like a true gamer on their terms. I mean, I've never been on a leaderboard, and I don't want to be. I don't spend more than, say, an hour a day playing games of any kind, and that's all together. Because I can't. I've got other stuff to do. I'd love it if I could, but well, no, I wouldn't. I'd sit there going, "Is this all I'm doing with my life?" Even if I'm massively enjoying myself and appreciating the art. And so this idea of, first off, of the fake or real gamer is by itself not real, and then the idea of because as I say, anyone who knows me thinks I'm overly obsessed with games, but it just doesn't. I'm nowhere near to the level of someone who would call themselves a true gamer or even recognize that. Yeah. And then you've got the idea of the fake girl gamer, which rests entirely on the concept that extremely attractive women would be desperate for the kind of person who would use that term to be attracted to them, which I just don't think they are. The idea that you would pretend to fit in with a group as unpleasant as that, I don't think anyone would do that.
I think it all came about originally because Michelle Phan, who does the makeup videos, her I think husband or manager I think maybe they won't claim. I'm not sure about that. Got her to talk about video games to appease her male audience, and she's not a gamer at all. She once went to I used to follow her on Twitter. She once went to a video game concert where the music's, and for the whole thing she just tweeted, and that just said to me she's not enjoying being there. She wants to be out of there. If she was actually enjoying it, she wouldn't think twice about tweeting. It's like, oh my god, the music is so uplifting. It's incredible.
Possibly, but the live tweet is a thing now, isn't it? I've caught myself watching a film or something that I want to watch, or an episode of Game of Thrones, and sitting there tweeting about it, and then I've missed it because I was. I think we've taken on board or at least I have, and some people have, the idea of live tweeting your way through something.
A lot of reality shows in Australia, or we have a long history, sadly, of, I don't know what we'd call them, Ian, like The Block or MasterChef, these kind of elimination-style competition shows where people build a house.
Reality shows, but they're not game shows. They're like a fusion of the two.
They have taken the concept of live tweeting and installed it into the free-to-air television program, and you'll have a scroll bar on the bottom, like this one, that will display selected, I don't know whether it's an algorithm that's choosing them or a producer, but selected tweets from viewers, not as the show is being recorded, obviously, because it's all pre-recorded and edited, but as the show is being aired. So while the weekly half-hour, hour-long program is being aired, people live tweeting, oh, isn't Sue's garden lovely this week? And it'll scroll along the bottom of the screen like a news feed. And I find that concept to be, in those situations, hilarious. Because there's nothing better than a bored 30-something house mother with her glass of wine and a mobile phone watching somebody cook a souffle on a television cooking competition and having a comment about it. It's brilliant. But I find it interesting that they've taken the struggling medium of free-to-air television and integrated live tweeting straight into it, and seemingly without any bugs or hassles or rejection. We just accepted it. The whole country just went, oh, that's cool, and then we went back to watching the show.
Well, it's the kind of program.
What? It's the kind of program.
Sorry, man. It's this delay. I started saying it and then the timing was wrong. No, I was just saying it's the kind of program that fits seamlessly into. The problem is when things like the news do the same thing, except instead of. We were talking a minute ago about how news breaks on Twitter first and then on the news second, and so what would make sense is for the news to have a scrolling bar of news that's breaking on Twitter, but of course that would be irresponsible. They have to make sure it's verified and so on. So instead, that when they have Twitter integration on news programs, which they do to an extent, it's like, well, so-and-so's opinion on the news is it's good. So-and-so's opinion on the news is it's bad, and you essentially just get exposed to extremist opinions.
Yes.
And you get the impression that that's what your country consists of, is sort of people with extremist opinions on things. And that's not really representative.
Just getting back to fake gamer girls there. Yeah. For a second, I think partly where it comes from, because she was as far as I'm aware, the original fake gamer girl. I'm not sure that she games much outside of your sort of social media, Angry Birds and whatnot. I doubt. Anyway, once it was sort of revealed that she wasn't the gamer she was presented as being, all of those male fanboys took that hatred and then projected it onto any other female gamer they came across.
Right. I mean, what they're doing is they're mistaking photo shoots for reality, because there are photo shoots of a model with a NES controller or whatever, and I've seen people go, "Look, fake gamer girl," and you're like, "Yes, that's a photo. That's an actor. It is. Yeah. That she might be a gamer. You wouldn't be able to tell either way from that photograph, because that's a posed photograph that someone has set up, and you do see that sometimes. But when it comes to individuals, if someone says they play games, why do we need to scrutinize whether that's true? It just seems like it's not important.
Speaking of comments, Well, that's right, even if it's not real. Speaking of comments, we've talked. You're the most prolific YouTuber in the room at the moment. I'm a very passive observer. I don't engage terribly often. I don't create and I don't comment a lot. I'm starting to do both more often. But you're a fairly prolific interactor of. Is there a term for this? You comment a lot. You get a lot out of. You've actually had a lot of benefits from commenting on other people's.
Yes, when people leave comments for me that I can reply to, I do, and I'm still in that position where it's not an overwhelming torrent of comments, so I can still do that. But also, I'm not afraid to comment on other people's videos as well. I think that essentially the reason being that I've seen what happens when. Here's what happens. If you post a video and it's a video about a topic that some people agree with and some people disagree with, what happens is this. The people who agree with it go, yeah, I agree with that, and then they carry on making their sandwich. The people who are on the fence and don't care just watch it, and that's fine. The people who disagree comment. And so when there are videos about a topic that's a point of argument on the internet, all of the angriest people will reply. And so it's important, I think, and this is the attitude I have with my videos as well, it's important to talk about things you're not angry about, or things you like, or things that you're even indifferent to, because otherwise the internet will just be a negative place where all we do is yell about stuff we hate. So yes, when
the call to action, I think that's starting to happen a lot more, which I know Ian, you quite often participate in, which is, comment, like, and subscribe, but actually providing a constructive comment or engaging in a response video or a response comment, which I think is kind of dying off a little bit now. But that was definitely an area that you did a lot of, Ian. You did a lot of video responses and things like that. How do I say this? Do you feel that your interactions on the internet and on YouTube specifically in that domain tend to be a little bit futile because they get drowned out with all of the negative noise that Dave was just talking about? How the negative people tend to comment more, so the people who actively engage in a positive manner, such as yourself, do you ever feel like you write it and you put it out there and it just goes and disappears?
I'm going to answer that with my, I think, the 2 times I've video replied, which you can't video reply in the old-fashioned sense anymore, but you can make a video and just post a link to it in the comments, so you can, in a way. Anyway, one was done by Hank Green of the Vlogbrothers, and his question was, what would you say to an alien if it came down? And another part of his video in was explaining sight and sound, saying that hearing is the most important of our 5 senses. I then commented that sight is by far the most important, because if you can't hear and you get in a car and want to go to the shops and drive for some milk, it doesn't matter that you can't hear. You can't hear your way to the shops driving if you are blind. And that was a point I made, and I think a lot of people, because I was pointing out the fact and saying something against what the almighty Hank Green says, that I think is one of my most disliked videos. So, but at the same time, it was drowned out because so many people video replied, because he's such a prominent person on YouTube, that my video wouldn't have got that many views because of very few people would actually watch every single video comment. And another one was on Charlie Is So Cool Like. His video was like, I'm afraid. He was afraid that, he has doubts when he makes the videos. Do people actually watch this? Do people legitimately enjoy this? Are the comments honest, or are they just commenting for the sake of commenting? And I just made a video replying to that, saying, yeah, it's fine, people watch and whatever. But again, that video is not really liked or disliked. It doesn't really have a much higher view count overall than the majority of my other videos on average, because it's been drowned out by everyone else thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna get to video reply to Charlie Is So Cool Like. But sometimes my comments do get commented on if they're worth replying to.
Yeah. Video responses. Yes, that's a thing that used to be part of YouTube, and I think maybe it's just because I haven't settled into whatever the alternative may be, but I think it is a tragedy that that's gone away. Not because it was. I think YouTube's position might be that it wasn't being used to the extent that it could be, and it wasn't, but it should be. The idea of making videos for each other and replying to each other in videos would be a wonderful thing, and it's a shame that it's now. I would think that if I wanted to make a comment on a video that someone had done, I think a comment would be seen by them more likely than a video response, and that's a shame. Because a video response used to be, I guess, like if you've really got something to say, then you make the video, and I would always watch a video response someone had made to me. But as a YouTube user who gets comments, we do see the comments. Like if you presumably the people. God knows the Greens will have so many comments that they can't possibly read them all, but I bet they do. They're just nice people, and I bet they try. But some of the larger YouTube people who just have too many comments to read them all, presumably they don't. But it's because of because it alerts you to them, because you get a little bell icon with a number next to it. You do see the comments, and so I think it is worthwhile leaving them. I think the person, they might not reply to you, but it's just because they don't, they've got other stuff to do, but they see them. So yes, I agree. I think it's always a good thing to reply, to just comment. There's nothing wrong with it, and there is something wrong with only using that for abuse, which is what would be left if we all get this sense that we shouldn't reply, or that there's also a sense, isn't there, that we still have somewhere inside us, even though we can post on YouTube, we can put videos there, we still have that celebrity sense. So when there's someone whose videos get a lot of views, or we recognize them, we think, well, I can't talk to them, but you can, and you should, because they'll like it. That's
I think
simple as it is.
That's a positive note to end today. The happy commenter is a well received commenter.
Yeah, but I'm a compulsive commenter.
Yes, I noticed. It's brilliant.
Comment. Say, oh, a video. I can comment. Type. Enter. And
yeah, good.
Speaking of social media and integration, what do you think of the YouTube Google Plus integration? Just before we wrap everything up.
Possibly care less about Google Plus. It's you know what? Because this is done on Google Hangouts, and so there's a certain amount of integration there. This is basically the first time I've ever. I think we've got the same toothbrush. This is the first time I've ever really used.
Oral-B Electric.
Yeah. I've got a different model, but it's about the same sort. Yeah, it's Google Plus. God, when they made it so that you have to have your YouTube account connected to Google Plus, the feeling at the time among those of us who were trying our best to be reasonable about it was, well, we don't want this, but I bet it'll be fine and we'll get used to it, and in a year or so we'll be like, what was our problem? But no, yeah. It's still a hindrance. It's a muddle. It's a confusing mess, and it's.
I don't mind it so much now that I've gotten used to it. Like every comment you post on a YouTube video goes to Google Plus. It becomes so if anyone who's got me in their circle, so Matty sees all of my comments in his Google Plus feed, assuming I have it set to public.
Well, I've put you in my circles, so presumably I would see that as well. But how am I ever going to find out? Because I would have to go to Google Plus to do that, and why would I do that?
Right.
I love the finality. Why would I do that? It's like,
well, maybe I will.
Go to the Antarctic.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's like, well, all I will do by going there is be shown stuff I don't understand. Now that is my fault, and if I would, maybe I should engage with the brand more or whatever it is. Maybe it would help me if I got more into it, and maybe I will as time goes along. But unfortunately, we are in that. I am. Maybe I'm just too old to accept new things, but I have social media things that do apply to me. I think here's the problem.
Yeah.
I've got Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, you do a particular thing. You do 140 character nuggets. They might be jokes. They might be little observations, whatever. They might be adverts for your videos you've made. On Facebook, you can post longer things, or you can communicate with people from school or your family, right? So I now have a short form and a long form social media communication tool. After that, it kind of needs to be something else, or otherwise, what do I post where? If I can post anything I want on Google+, do I post it on that? Do I post it on Facebook? How do I choose? The natural answer seems to be, well, I want to say it. I'm not interested in where I say it, I just want to say a thing. So you would end up posting the same thing on everything. And it's like that's too many, so I only need one. I just need one social media platform, and Google Plus feels like one too many.
There is software you can get that links it all to once, so you just type the one thing once, hit enter, and it automatically spits it out to all those social media platforms.
For whose benefit, though? Like, who needs to see all that more than once? If they want to read your stuff, don't they follow you on whatever you say it on, and then it doesn't need to be anywhere else?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And this is something. Now, this is something that Google need to address, essentially. Like, I'm sure there is a place in the world for Google Plus, and as you say, if it is the one we actually secretly want to be the main one, then good luck to it. But I guess they need to tell me why. People like me who don't understand what the point of it is should be made to understand.
One last thing before I go. I love how Nintendo have integrated social media into their latest console with the Miiverse, which is basically Nintendo's answer to Twitter, and it's specific to the Wii U and the 3DS.
And that is doing a different thing. That's a good example of a new social media platform because it is a separate thing, and as well with the drawings, the picture ability, that it actually is slightly different to them as well as simply being on a different machine. So. Now, I don't know much about it because I haven't got a Wii U, but I understand that that's a good example.
But you do have a 3DS because I saw your unboxing of it.
Yes, I do. However,
the Miiverse is on there.
Well, now remember when I said I'm no true gamer? One of the ways in which I fail is that I can't even get the hang of Nintendo things. I have never, ever understood. Well, there's two parts to this. I've never understood the interface of the 3DS. I don't know what you know when you go around getting the street passes and then you play something. Yeah. I don't know what all that stuff is. And the reason I don't know what all that stuff is that I would never. Maybe this is just because I grew up at a time when Game Boy was the thing and Game Boy Advance and so on. But I have no reason to open a 3DS unless I've decided to play a 3DS game. And so I never find out what all that stuff in between me and the game is because it's in between me and the game. I just put a game in and play the game. And that I understand is doing it wrong, but I would have to be a true gamer.
True gamer. Right. I think we'll leave it there at that. Hopefully, I hope you watch Doctor Who, Dave, because that's next week's topic.
Oh, I absolutely do, yes.
He's British. He's going to get, implanted in his brain when it comes out. And they'll just send little men in suits with briefcases and a little need on the doctor.
Next week, I will tell you, as a teaser, about, because I was 5 years old when I was first a Dalek, and I will tell you all about Andrew Hodges' wonderful turn as the Doctor, and the time the Daleks attacked what was kind of the 5-year-old playground equivalent of Pride and Prejudice going on in another corner of the playground. So you've that to look forward to.
Right, that'll be great. So hopefully we'll have all watched it because it'll EB will have watched it. I'll have watched it probably at least.
I'll have watched it
by then.
Oh, you mean is it going to?
It's coming.
Be on?
Yeah.
Is it on Saturday?
For you, it'll be on Saturday. Yeah.
Oh my word! Well, that's exciting, isn't it, Capaldi? Yes. You can't wait.
Yes. Deep breath. That's the title of the first episode.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you all next week, if not.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.